Thank you all very much for coming to the opening panel on the pre-day of Digital Hollywood. My name is Joseph Laszlo, and I'm a senior analyst and research director with Jupiter Research, which is a market research and technology company based in New York City. Historically, I've covered broadband and telecommunications there. More recently, I've started looking more and more at broadband media, which by and large means video over the internet, and so I'm very excited to be here. I think we've put together an excellent panel and on the hottest possible topic at this point. So we're hoping to give you a lot of insights into how the market for user-generated content is shaping up, what it means, because I actually think it's a blanket term that applies to a bunch of different business models and a bunch of different actually kinds of content, and then give you a sense of where it's all going and whether or not stuff that ordinary folks make is about to displace stuff that Hollywood makes. So to kick things off, I'll throw out a Jupiter Research statistic that I think is very germane to the subject. We asked online consumers how they find the video that they watch on the internet. And the most chosen response, 20% of them said friends' recommendations is the most important thing in terms of how they find internet video. After that, 17% said a search engine, which is a little bit surprising given that dedicated video search engines are so nascent right now. So a lot of people are finding video from, I would assume, mainstream mass market search engines that weren't necessarily designed to optimize that experience. Another 13% said actually offline influence, URLs in movie trailers and stuff like that points them towards video that they see. So that I think is interesting. It points to a popular genre of online video content is still traditional media. And then finally, 12% said they go directly to video specialist sites. 11% said they go to portals. So people are going all over the place. There is no one sort of winner in terms of where people go when they seek out online video, but if there's one thing that the class of user-created video sites are trying to do, it's be that intermediary, play that role, helping the end user find the content that they want to see that's going to entertain or inform or enrich their life. And so hopefully that question of how you play that intermediary role best and how you make money at it. Those two questions will be two that we look at this afternoon. I'm going to start by letting everybody spend a minute or so introducing themselves, and the way I'd like to do it is tell me a little bit about either the most popular user-created content that you are delivering or that your company is delivering currently, or your favorite example of a piece of user-created content that proves that this has legs, it's not just a fad, it's a real thing. And we'll go from the audience's left to right. So we'll start with Bill.
Sure.
Take it away.
Sure. So my name is Bill Jeffries. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Rever. Rever was the first viral video network that actually pays creators of videos to upload their videos and share them on our network, and also pay people that actually share or syndicate our videos. We really have an advertising insertion technology that we use to monetize videos, and that monetization event is how the revenue flows into our system, and then we share it with the creator and the person that syndicates our clip. As far as content on our network, we really are looking to provide tools for others to share the video. So we're not necessarily trying to bring people into Rever as a destination. The videos can be gathered and pushed out into all kinds of different channels. Viral channels like blogs, communities, even email as a distribution medium, as well as traditional destination sites, search engines, that sort of thing. One of the areas of content I would say that's the most interesting right now would be some of what we kind of call our emerging farm team. So viral creators that have reached some critical mass in terms of developing an audience around episodic content or sort of niche types of categories. One example would be Ask a Ninja, which is basically a parody of a guy dressed up like a ninja who comments on everything from movie reviews to social topics. Another example would be Lonely Girl 15, who was a story that a lot of people probably followed. An example of content that was actually produced but came through and bubbled up really as something that people thought was viral and homegrown, and ultimately is something now that has broken out, has become a form of content that people are now following on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so that's great. One, good that we're setting up the topic of paying for this stuff to encourage content creators, and two, the whole idea that there's different genres here, and there's sort of this emerging genre of maybe semi-pro content, or people who aren't quite truly amateurs, but maybe are masquerading as amateurs because there's so much popularity here. So those are great. We'll definitely come back to those. Todd, Microsoft is doing stuff all over the video landscape, from the highest end IPTV deployments all the way down to user-created videos. Can you tell us?
Or wait, stop, reverse that.
Yes,
Up to you.
the other way. What's good on Soapbox these days?
Soapbox is good on Soapbox, but I wanted to start with I wanted to make a point is that I grew up in traditional radio as a talk show host, and so my favorite piece of user-generated content was when a guy called to threaten to kill me, but he wasn't a good speaker and he couldn't get it out. But the producer told me he wants to kill you, and so I had to coach him through. Okay, but you want to? So
How would you kill me? Would you?
I'm gonna kill me? And eventually he came around to, yeah, I want to kill you. But because I helped him, he actually then started to like me. Yeah, those are the types of friends I really want. But so I guess the point I'm making is that user-generated content's been around a long time. But this distribution method that we're seeing is incredible. And my favorite piece of user-generated content I've seen on MSN was a guy who invented a baking tray called the I think it was the All Edge Brownie. So, anyone who likes brownies knows that only the brownies with edges are good. And so it looked like a snake, and someone funded that. So someone stepped up, and this guy got VC funding and is now producing the All Edge Brownie. And the last thing I want to touch on is I'm not going to have any comment today on our acquisition of YouTube. We can't mention that. Google will put it on YouTube. We'll talk later.
Does that set me up?
I think you've been set up far better than I could do. So, what's good on Google Video?
So, Hunter Walker, product manager on Google Video. So, what's good on Google Video? Well, lots of stuff. One example that I wanted to try to highlight was is a spoof of the Shakira song, Hips Don't Lie. And it starts off with a large, overweight, topless man and just gets worse from there. It's been viewed 12 million plus times. And why I think it's so interesting is it's led to several hundred response parodies. So it started as this meme. And because we also work with Sony Records, and so we have the Hips Don't Lie official video for streaming and for sale, we've been able to see a large spillover effect in users who start to become interested in Shakira, search for Shakira, and get involved in both the user-generated content as well as the professional content. So a really interesting example of how user-generated and quote-unquote professional media can work closely together to reinforce one another's goals.
Great. Alex, I see you guys being a little bit different in terms of being maybe a little more focused on true consumer content. That you want to share with just your family and friends, not necessarily everybody. But how do you see the market shaping up? And are you looking for breakout hits as well?
So my name is Alex Welch. First of all, there's some chairs up here if anybody doesn't really want to stand, but we don't bite. With Photobucket.com, Photobucket is the largest personal media hub that allows video and image sharing amongst friends. And the difference there is that it's much more of a one-to-one or a closed network as opposed to a broadcast. And really from just a pure media standpoint, we see about 7 million new images and videos come in every single day. And it's really a wide array of content. I don't think there's one specific thing that really ever surprises me. It's everything from the avatars to the screenshots to the girls singing karaoke. And it's not about the one-hit wonders and the hits so much as it is about something that you care for and you care to share with your friends. So it's really a wide array of content.
Okay, great. Thanks. Greg.
My name is Greg Costello. I'm the CEO and founder for vmix.com. It is another video sharing site, but it's different in a number of three basic aspects. The first one is what you see. VMix.com is really dedicated to the creative class. That is the people that are creating content today. And because of that, we've taken a very different tack from a lot of other organizations. First thing is, we didn't allow pornography or copyright from day one, and we really managed that. We've gone above and beyond what the DMCA requires and really looked at each piece of content seen on the site. It allowed us to categorize that content and actually work with the artists as they uploaded it and really try to find out what they wanted for the site. The second thing was, this is like two things you don't see so much, but it has to do with a lot of our relationships. We have relationships with Warner Brothers and Fox, Sony, Paramount, and a whole host of others. And it's because of our sort of attitude of working closely with them, allowed us to do a lot of interactive marketing. So we created the first Napoleon Dynamite Dance-Off. That's a mixture of, for those of you know, this sort of crazy dance he does at the end. And then you can upload your own dance and then have a dance-off between them. And we've done a number of different things, most recently with Tyra Show. And so it's really that mixture of user-generated content with major brands. And then the third part, which you may have seen the announcement about, is that we're actually helping power the CW site in San Diego for user-generated content. So it's taking the technology that we've created, leveraging it, and also the business systems and rules. It's really important for a lot of guys. I mean, doing video is hard, but doing business rules around video and user-generated content is even harder. So we have a whole system that CW has adopted as part of that. Oh, my most favorite video, well, sort of telling that. My most favorite video is one that a 14-year-old girl put up, and it's a mashup set to Anita Hero. And she basically took all this iconography and different sort of clips, put it together, mashed it together. It's really brilliant and sent to the song. And it's really exciting because it sort of shows the way that kids are reusing content today. The reason sort of is indicative of our site is we're 65% female sign up for our site. We're probably the only site like that. I think part of the reason why is that we don't allow pornography on the site. We haven't at all. And also that we have a very inviting site from a design standpoint.
Great, very good. And rounding out the panel, Dimitri, tell us a little bit about what's hot on Veo these days.
I rarely round things out, so hopefully I'll
Square them off?
I think you'll find that Veo is significantly different from the rest of the folks on the panel. We really look at the world as being kind of an evolution of two different mediums that are evolving right now. One medium we call the Worldwide Video Web, the WWW. And that medium is a medium that allows you, it's part of the web, it's experienced in a browser, you experience it leaning forward with keyboard and mouse in hand, and you consume videos, typically short videos, what's starting to become known as video snacking. It's meant for viral video, it's meant to be consumed at work, it's great entertainment. We all know it works, and kind of the epitome there was YouTube. Now is it starting to become known as YouTube. Do you guys call it that inside the I think it's a good name.
I'll say the URL's available.
It's actually taken, I've already tried it.
Does it redirect to Veo?
No, it doesn't. I would give it to you, by the way. So that's one. We really think that's hot. We think there's a lot of innovation needs to be done there, and that's very interesting. That's not where Veo is. Veo believes there's a parallel medium that's evolving, and that's the medium of internet television. Forget the web for a second, and forget the experience you have of leaning forward and watching content. Traditionally, there are three ways you could distribute television: long-form, high-resolution content that you consume leaning back with a remote control in hand and kind of sitting and zonking out being a couch potato. You could broadcast it through airwaves, you could broadcast it through cable, and you could broadcast it through satellite. Veo is the fourth way that you can broadcast long-form, high-resolution, television-grade content, but it's democratized. Just like YouTube allows you to upload videos to the website, but they're restricted in size and they're experienced in a browser. Veo allows you to upload video with unrestricted size, and it's not consumed in a browser, it's consumed in a client application that you install on your PC or Mac. And that client application acts like an internet television digital video recorder, and it's constantly getting you the latest content that you want. And it figures out the content you want by you telling it what you want, and also by using an intelligent recommendation engine that discovers the kinds of things you want and gives you more of those. And so we really believe that these content producers that today are experimenting with producing these short little viral video clips will very quickly move on and start producing longer content and higher quality content, and will need a platform to distribute that content. So already we have, people that are broadcasting 30-minute, 45-minute long television type shows, something like, what's the name here, the guitar guys.
Indignation.
No, not Dignation. Dignation is a good example. Command and the movie.
Wayne's
Town.
World?
Not a building technique. Yeah, so Wayne's World. Thank you.
Public access TV.
Wayne's World type stuff, right? So that deal allows you to broadcast that kind of content.
Great. Okay, so I think Dimitri is sort of by talking about kind of specialization around the kind of content creator sort of segues the conversation really nicely. And I feel like to differentiate and to survive, all of the companies that are kind of encouraging user-created content need to attract and retain the creators of the content, without whom they're just a network with nothing in it, as well as an audience, the people that want to watch this stuff. And we can argue about kind of everybody's going to be play both roles at some point, but I think when you're a content creator, you look at these kinds of companies, these kinds of choices. Do I put my video up on YouTube, or do I put it up on Veo or someplace else? And thinks about them with a different mindset than somebody who just wants to watch something and use them for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or half an hour. So what I'd like to ask you all is what are the things that inspires a content creator, someone who has a cool video clip, to put it on one site versus another? How do people make that decision? What qualities sort of attract somebody, and how do those differ from one kind of creator to another?
Any order? Well, look, I think that today people are experimenting. Right, we're in the very early days of these new mediums. I compare this to kind of where the World Wide Web was in 1994 and 1995. We're all creating these little bitty videos, very akin to when we nerds in 1994 and 95 created these little bitty websites. Here's my hobby, here's my girlfriend, here's my dog, here's the dancing Java guy, and the white, paper textured background image. We're not exactly sure what we're doing. We put it up on GeoCities, we create our own website, we did all that stuff back then, we're doing the same thing. The stuff that's available on Rever, on vMix, on Veo, on Google, on YouTube, and hundreds of other sites is typically all very similar. I think the things that will drive people as they kind of mature is I think they will look at I think we'll have different types of people with different drivers. If everyone's familiar with the long tail? No.
I was going to ban that from the panel, but
I won't go into it.
Is he a guitar guy?
Let me try to make you like the long tail a bit more, because I think the long tail has been a bit misrepresented as a whole.
So this is Longtail 2.0.
This is long tail.
I swear to God, we've reached a tipping point here.
This is Longtail 2.0. And not my own example, but I think Owen Malik and Robert Young are doing a great job kind of, extending the definition of longtail. Right? Longtail was traditionally kind of the hits, which is now starting to kind of become known as a fat head. And then there was the long tail, so it's the fat head and the long tail. And Robert Young, who's a writer who writes for Giggle and Phone Malik's blog, has recently defined kind of a middle section, which we've all kind of known existed, but he named it, and he called it the fat belly, right? And then after the fat belly, there's the long tail. Recently, I've sat with a number of people who've been defining kind of the intersections, the intersection between the fat head and the fat tail, and the intersection between the fat tail and the fat belly and the long tail. But I'll let you guys define those in 20. I think that if you look at those and you look at publishers along that tail, I think they have very different needs. The professionals are clearly, the fat head, are clearly looking for ways. How do we find a place to publish where we can generate revenue off our content? They know it runs their business. It's a business, and that's what they're interested in. That's kind of on the far left of the tail. If you look at the far right, we clearly know that people love YouTube. Because YouTube allows them to put their video up there and try to get their 15 minutes of fame. They have no interest in making money from it, they are simply there. Then there are things like Rever and Veo that kind of focus on the middle of the tail, right, the fat belly, which is there are producers or even enthusiasts that may someday become producers that are looking for more than 15 minutes of fame, but aren't strictly looking for money. And so they need help with infrastructure. Somebody brought up, Hunter brought up Dignation, right? If you look at Dignation, everyone know what Dignation is? It's a show by Kevin Rose. You should check it out. Dignation is a great show that's produced in people in their living room. These two guys sit back and produce a 45-minute to an hour-long show talking about technology. They take that show, they transcode it to a bunch of different formats, they offer it in a bunch of different means, they make it available to a bunch of different systems. And I think that's what's going to be required kind of in the fat belly, is a lot of support for those kinds of broadcasters and monetization capabilities.
So, Bill, is that the way you guys characterize your target audience too, in terms of being able to facilitate making money off of your content, but you're not necessarily if you're somebody like that? Are you after the fat belly as well?
I think we're after the whole thing. We see value in working with people that just bought their camera and want to shoot a video and try to upload it, and we see value in working with traditional creative content producers. There's no doubt that there's a sweet spot for us right in that middle. At a certain point, a lot of creators realize that they've got some traffic to their video and they want to start to make money. Our key driver is obviously the monetization component, but there are other benefits also. We provide a lot of tools to help people build out their own site as the destination. So Rever's not really about pulling everyone into our portal and allowing them to just have their content monetized through the party that's hosting it. We really provide the tools to build your own site, make your own brand, your own destination, to actually push that content out there and have each file be an extension of your network. The other thing we do is we're very strict on copyright. So we really only work with the bona fide copyright holder of the clip. We only work with people that can demonstrate that they have the right to distribute the content. And on the flip side, we're preventing others from uploading their content onto our system as well. So what we're really trying to do is build a clean network and have original content without duplication. And we feel that the people that embrace our system are the ones that see the value in sort of getting the content out there and allowing it to proliferate and allowing it to be pushed out there, but doing it in a way where they benefit and retain some control.
Yeah. Greg, when I think of vMix, I think about tools as well. I mean, I think that's one thing that you guys are using too. And I'm wondering, kind of what kind of consumer will help you edit and make sure your video looks really clean. What kind of consumer does that, or creator does that attract?
It's amazing what you see produced by people with very little experience to begin with, and then it sort of evolved. Literally, I would see videos get uploaded where clearly the person wants to make movies their field. And every single about month they upload a new video, and they've gotten better and better at what they do. But we wanted to actually introduce people to this at the earlier parts, even before they became sort of professionals. And so we introduced a slideshow tool set to license music, where people create just their beginnings of sort of kind of animation. And I would call it sort of the entry-level drug for people, so they can feel like they actually can do this work. That entry-level drug has now led to a series of new widgets and tools that you can use. One of them is called Mask now. How many people watch Conan O'Brien? Okay, well, with this tool, you can basically, we give you a bunch of masks like Paris Hilton and Dick Cheney. You can put your face onto it and create your own sort of Conan O'Brien takeoff, and it's very funny. These are the kinds of tools we're creating about every month, so you knew to get people engrossed in it. I still think the best editing tools are offline, and we really want to get the novice introduced to this, and that's really what our focus is.
So let me, the question I think was, the people who are creating videos today, how do you interact with them?
So, how do you segment the market?
Yeah, so to extend the question a little bit, it's the people who, something I think about that is the people who aren't making videos today, what encourages them to start. Prior to getting involved with Google Video, I spent a few years working on our contextual advertising product assets. And amongst other things, what the monetization engine there, a simple monetization engine, incented people to do were create lots of types of web-based content that before maybe was just a hobby and they were able to turn into a business. I see very much the same opportunity for monetization to come into the user-generated video field. The question I often pose is, how do we get more broader definition of user-generated content, especially around informative, educational? What makes the amateur chef decide to make a bunch of 5-minute cooking videos? Today it might be because she's trying to drive traffic to her blog or otherwise enhance her career, or maybe she just enjoys it. But I believe that if she knew she could make a few $100s a week by having great ads plugged against that and have that video be discoverable by the major video destination sites or search engines, I think you can see a whole type of content being created that maybe lacks some of the incentives today. And so I think we look down the road, if we'll all have done our jobs, there'll be a very, very broad definition of user-generated content, potentially even broader than we see today.
I think that's one of the interesting points that we've been looking at from a monetization perspective, is that when Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter got together and had a baby in the form of killing the fairness doctrine, in radio, AM radio's band just exploded, right? And all of a sudden this also-ran became like the revenue center for radio, but what it did was it expanded the choices. Larry King and Howard Stern were the result of that marriage. And so we're very interested in what...
Larry King and Howard Stern are the
Results
children
of
of
Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. Hey, you got a whiteboard? Because I can draw this out. The fairness doctrine birthed the broad spectrum of choice in radio, and that's what the monetization ad community is facing, is now take that times 1,000,000, and suddenly we're going to have new forms of storytelling. So in addition to what my fellow panelists have said, there's the ease of use, it's easy to do, there's the great distribution where I get paid, but there's also then, I think, this advancing of people probably want to be better at telling stories, right? I mean, they want their stuff to look better. They want to put cool widgets within inside it. They want to express themselves more clearly, right? And so we're at such a beginning stage where, if you think back on what immediately happened when the AM ban was freed up, it was no longer illegal to have a show which focused on one political viewpoint. It started very dinosaur, and now we have all sorts of interesting choices there. But in this world, I believe those tool sets, enabling users to get much better at what they're doing, probably may create another shelf of storytellers above and beyond just, quote, user-generated video. But in fact, hopefully human-created stories will come as a result of this, which is, to me, the most exciting aspect.
Yeah, the question about the difference between pure original stuff, which it sounds like you're talking about, versus kind of pure original stuff, but stuff that's created with more of a professional bent, versus all of the remixes and mashups. And it's interesting going down the line, aside from the guy with the innovative brownie pan, I felt like most of the videos that you guys talked about were somebody remixing this, or somebody doing a video to this song. And it's kind of where the professional content and the consumer's creativity come together. That there feels like there's a lot of interesting stuff, but I feel like copyright owners are a little uncomfortable there too. And so I'd just like to get a quick read from you guys in terms of what's the line? If somebody's lip syncing to a Britney song, is that wouldn't be something you guys could post, right? And then secondarily, you offer tools that facilitate remixes and mashups, so you just go the other direction.
I think that's exactly what we did for Remix, is we licensed about 5,000 independent tracks from the artists. It's the same experience, so just a little bit of background. I used to be the head of technology for Input.com, the original one. And what we started out with a lot of times was garage bands and people that were unsigned artists. And as we started showing the world that you could actually promote yourself and make money as an independent artist, lo and behold, then the more progressive labels came aboard, and then even more labels came aboard. So if you show people there's a real business here around using copyrighted content, they will follow. But I think that right now it's sort of where it's been sort of everything's available, and just now you're seeing sort of response with the 30,000 takedowns off of YouTube last week. You're going to see more of that. I think it's a responsibility for those involved in this space to show the content owners there's real value here. And I think Rever's done that. I think certainly DMix is going to partner with that. There's others that are looking at ways to really help out the artists succeed in this space. It's not by giving away full-length videos. That's certainly not going to fit into most people's business models. But it is oftentimes there's a balance. So, for example, something we did is we worked with Fox early on. We have a whole channel around Family Guy. They include 3-minute clips that go to, or 3-minute or less clips of sort of your favorite Family Guy clips. And then it links off to where Fox wants to go, which is the purchase of those DVDs. And so there is a balance you can find where you give the users creative control, give them great tools, and still reward the content producers.
Bill, where are you guys drawing that line in the fuzzy boundary? I mean, if I upload a video of my daughter's birthday party and I'm singing happy birthday to her, that feels like it's shaky ground.
There definitely are some nuances that are difficult. I mean, we're pretty adamant about protecting copyright, so we walk that line pretty clearly. From our perspective, for traditional content holders, they're going to have to understand the model and see the benefit and put the content out there and allow it to be modified. But there's a really interesting play with user-generated content as well. In our case, kind of from our positioning, we would always allow the user to determine whether they want to make their content available for remixing or matching up from our site. And we think with their consent, there's no reason why we shouldn't support that model and allow the creator to get paid for doing that as well. And it's kind of interesting because it really opens up a whole new class of creative, someone that didn't actually shoot any video. We typically think of video creators as someone who's gone out and actually shot something or produced something. The whole kind of mashup and derivative work category brings a whole new set of people into the mix that don't even necessarily even have to own a video camera.
To me, that's more interesting to me, the advance of multi-spectrum storytelling, applying technology against, or looking at a video story as an application, right? And then applying against it technological tools to make it more interesting, not just mashing it up, but like driving maps into video, and that's fascinating to me, and that's, to me, user-modified video, maybe.
It's tough, right? There's a video where a Star Trek video with Kirk and Spock in the Nine Inch Nails song that I swear to God is one of the most creative things I've seen in the last year, but there's not really an original bone in its body.
So, I think it's pretty clear what I was with what you were saying is in this case, rights holders do not want to salt the earth. There's a lot of opportunity to capture the passion of these users to find different business models to drive some of their existing business models, which I've been sort of linking to the DVD, throwing ads, embracing some of this content. And I just think it's sort of our obligation to work closely with these people to come up with the innovation, to come up with the technical solutions that are going to enable what these users want to do, as opposed to trying to delay this for another 10, 15 years.
We found that it was really interesting, so I went through the audio revolution, and the music industry may have come around, it wasn't so friendly back in '99. That's not the case with the studios and television today. We found them to be incredibly approachable. They want to work with us, and if you have something of value to offer back, they will work with you.
How many folks here are from the studio? Yeah. Great. Okay.
I think also that, if you look really at video as a whole, we're really, really early on. I mean, if you look at the amount of video being consumed versus the amount of video being created, the ratio is fairly far off compared to photos, and that's just because it's still somewhat hard to do. I think that if you look at a lot of videos that go viral, they're not something purely original. They're something that has a twist to it. But I really think that over the next couple of years, we're going to see technologies and ways to really combine that. A lot of times it could be third-party content with user-created content, really allow that publishing and that creating. But to me, it feels like if we just look at the videos that are uploaded to PhotoBucket every day, they're the 30-second punchlines, of a happy birthday or of a soccer game. It's not much more than that. So it looks like there's a lot to come.
Cool. Let's shift gears. We've been talking about content creators and the fact that there's a whole spectrum out there. You talking about consumer created content is almost a misnomer because there are so many different kinds of creators. Let's talk a little bit about the other side, the audience, and how you guys are attracting people, or how you're facilitating creators attracting people to watch videos. And so I'm sure there's a million different strategies in terms of search or tagging or categorization or syndication and linking and that kind of thing. But maybe we can just go down the panel and you can talk a little bit about how you're helping the audience find the content.
Sure. So, kind of core to our whole strategy is we're really not seeing ourselves as a portal or a destination. Rever's model is to make the library available for open syndication. So anyone that wants to come and affiliate with us can. They can then use our tools and they can take our videos and they can distribute them within our guidelines pretty much anywhere they want. We kind of have different tiers of tools. We have what we call kind of our pedestrian level tools, which are embed codes and links and downloadable files that people can use to share videos sort of onesie-twosie. And then we have sort of mid-tier tools like our widget that enable people to create collections of videos that they can then place on web pages. And those collections can be dynamically updated based on sort of a rules engine, or they can be manually updated. And then at sort of the top end of the spectrum, we have a full-blown API where a partner can take our entire platform, they can build a private label version of our tools, they can deploy user registration, user upload, syndication, and sharing, and actually have really what amounts to kind of a business to consumer model with Rever, where we're actually paying their end users and them for facilitating that interface.
Yeah. Todd, MSN obviously has huge media properties that you can use to sort of funnel people around, but are you doing anything else in terms of specifically the user-created video part of you know, the overall Windows Live experience?
Or MSN.
Or MSN?
Let's figure it out. Raise your hand if you have been invited to join the Soapbox demo. Hunter, if your hand goes up, I swear I'm sorry. Right. So we have a ton of ways to promote video. There's MSN Video Search, but MSN, Microsoft wins when we really start to begin embracing placelessness, right? That the further out we can push your content, like what we're talking about with the syndication of immediate being able to marry up with the content clip, is where this is all coming from. Because the most successful user-generated video models have been less about portal destinations and more about making it almost insanely hard to not share a clip, right? So across our platforms, those would be massive, massive wins for us. Xbox Live, Marketplaces, Spaces, all those things are going to be utilized to bring traffic to Soapbox, as well as MSN homepage and the existing video properties. But in addition to that, we have observed, as I think everyone else has, that key to being able to be really a video dating service is much more important than being just the place, the restaurant. We'd rather be the dating service.
So everything that you've mentioned, that has been mentioned, that will be mentioned, we're either doing or working on. I mean, there's no sense that there's no. I don't believe there's. Let me anchor that when we're talking about how to help users find video, not the world at large.
Why does this water say copyright Google?
These are all. Okay. These are all going to be the things that you have to do to help your users and your content creators find each other. So let's talk about areas where I think that we could all do a better job. And so one area I think is recommendations and personalization. So when we have things from a search standpoint, some of our other products, trying to understand to help based upon what that user has looked at before, tell them maybe here's some other things that you might like. I think the video space is wide open to that type of customization as people develop relationships with these sites. It's a little bit different than just saying, here are videos related to the video you're watching, here are videos from the uploader of the video you're watching, all sort of those default things that we do to various degrees today. So I think over time, the personalization option is going to be something that once users start to use services like Google Video or others, is going to help them sort amongst these millions and millions and millions of videos to find the types of things that they might be interested in.
Yeah. What do you think about tagging, just out of curiosity? Because I find it's very Web 2.0. It's very fashionable to let people tag anything they want, and yet I find it's useless or next to useless in terms of actually finding something I want to see.
Is that directly?
Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, I mean, I guess when you introduce tagging, you see people using it in a lot of novel ways. They use it as commentary. They use it as metadata. They use it as ways to sort of build weird personal playlists that they share. I think the tagging at one level, if you're just looking at tags and saying, I'm adding this to the metadata pool, you're right. You don't necessarily, you can't by default have a high degree of confidence in what somebody's under. However, there's different things you can look at in terms of the ways that people reinforce tags, what they've tagged across just beyond that video. When people search for certain things and then the things they click on, do those tags match up again? I mean, there's a lot of ways to sort of reinforce the idea of search quality, and I mean, thankfully that's something that we do pretty well, so I think we can extend it appropriately to the videos.
Alex, how do you guys expand the photo bucket user base?
So we really look to our users to do that. Today we've got 27 million members, and we're adding about 80,000 new members every day, but they're not coming to PhotoBucket to look for content. They're coming to PhotoBucket to create and manage their content. So really, if you look at this as kind of a media platform, it's about giving users a really, really easy way to share via many means. One of the top URLs passed around, many of the IM clients were one of the top URLs passed around a lot of the email applications. It's a top URL that's pushed out to 250,000 different websites. So if you look at the users, they're really the ones that are getting the reach for us. They're out publishing content many different ways. The average user links to many different places and has multiple online identities. From there, they hop around all day long. They're jumping from site to site to site, and really having a central place to publish that content out is what's important to the users from our standpoint.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and Greg, I definitely want to get a sense of how you guys are how vMix thinks about attracting an audience. But I also want to come back to the question of syndication, especially as it relates to making money over time. If nobody actually comes to a central site, yeah, how do folks that want to be destination sites, kind of show their ads to the consumer? But let's start with.
So I was going to say we're just like Google or Microsoft minus the billion unique visitors a month. So I think that in the space in general, we use the same techniques that you use for blogs forever. You can share things, you can email things, you can do all those different ways of connecting people together. So I don't think there's anything particularly unique about video that's different, except perhaps you can't copy and paste the whole video into your email. But there's certainly, we've found ways to transform that. What people are forgetting though is that once you get to content, you want to explore more content. And what we haven't done in this space is done a very good job of really finding and exploring more content in any way that makes it sort of permanent. In other words, if I go to some site like vMix and I go there and I look and find a great video, great, what's my next step? If I look at more videos, like how are they all connected together? There aren't really any stories that are cohesively connecting them all together. So I think that's something that we can do better in this space. Again, I can look back to the days of Internet.com where you had a permanent place, a location for that content often around the artist. And so I think that needs to still be done. We need to do a much better job with metadata around that. With stories, you already have metadata, it already applies there. You can't easily get that with video, at least today. So I think there's a lot of sort of things that we look to progress from here. But what we're doing is really focusing on that, giving people a home. So we're sort of the end of ever, if you will. Then we really are a destination focused on the artist. We do think they want that permanent home, they want that venue, and so that's really our focus. And the best people most comfortable around their bringing their content to users.
Yeah, and then finally, Dimitri, given that you guys want kind of I don't know, longer form video is the focus. How do you adopt any kind of a different strategy in terms of growing the audience, helping with people that want to find that kind of experience to do it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say longer form is necessarily our focus. We do believe that being able to deliver longer form is going to be extremely important, and the content will move that way. The video snacking will exist, and longer form content will coexist. But I completely agree with Hunter. I think the holy grail in this space is going to be creating an engine that allows you to better discover what, the things that you make. As people learn about shows from the water cooler, I often joke that at our office we don't even have a water cooler. And so it's difficult to discover anything. Searching for content, I suspect we've all sat in front of our browser, probably in front of Google, text box that says, okay, the whole world's available to search for anything you want. And you're dumbfounded saying, I'm bored out of my mind, but I can't figure out what to search for because the world is so broad. You need people to recommend things to you. And to recommend things to you, they need to understand how you think. And to understand how you think requires a lot of what I call crazy math, right? Which is, yes, exactly. Our chief scientist is a guy named Ted Dunning who comes from Proudest Music Match, and we were known with Music Match. And Ted built a recommendation engine behind Music Match. And what the recommendation engine at Music Match could tell you is that if you like a Hong Kong-based pop singer named Andy Lau, chances are you like the Manchester United soccer team fight song. And that's a pretty crazy thing. You wouldn't think those things are related. But mathematically they are, because Hong Kong doesn't have a soccer team in the league with Manchester United, and they've adopted Manchester United as their overwhelmingly popular soccer team. And so, Veo spends a lot of resources working on those kinds of technologies.
So are you saying you think it's going to be mostly technology that does this and not just sort of people telling their friends, hey, you got to watch this video? When does technology take over?
Well, no, clearly people telling their friends is very important. I think we all have the same, just like Hunter said, we all have the same technologies to do that. We all have embeds, we all have the forward to friends, we all have all those types of things. and they're important. But the thing that really helps the consumer discover what they want, I believe, is going to have to be, a series of technologies. And obviously those technologies are driven by metadata, and that metadata is created by people. And so that's why all of us have social networking built in, because it's not only to allow people to connect with each other, but social networking creates a lot of those dependencies, a lot of metadata of how do people relate to other people. And then you can figure out if these people like this content, and these people actually relate to these people, there's some chance that these people over here will also like that content. And those kinds of things are extremely important, extremely complex things to do.
Yeah, so I'm curious if anybody on the panel has a strong opinion about that question of syndication, about the idea that if, depending on the ComScore data, and if you chew it up the right way, it looks like, a third to a half of the people that watch YouTube video don't go to YouTube. They watch it other places. If that many viewers aren't hitting a site, how do you make money off of them? And do you see that becoming a challenge as the revenue side of this whole business becomes more important? If all of this video is just syndicated out onto individual blogs, can the people that provide the crucial, middle role, can you guys make
I absolutely think so. I have huge opinions on this. That I refer to it as placelessness, and I do believe that sites like Confabulator or Mac Dashboard or Live.com, as sort of wonkish as they can be, are very precursors, because the takeoff of blogging activity amongst young people has been so robust and so huge that why would you start at MSN.com when you can start at your space, your own personal space? So I think business model embeds are going to become very, very, very important, and the role of ComScore is going to have to grow way up and get out of this notion that just the referring or mom or papa URL is the one that counts. And they have about 15 years of work to catch up on, because I do believe that businessness horizon on pure destination pages, unless you're a search powerhouse or a portal, is going to be less and less important. It's going to be more about content flowing with business model to any device, right?
Yeah, we believe you put the technology inside of the file and make the file the mechanism. So we really consider ours a file-based network. We allow downloading, we encourage downloading. And the idea is wherever you want to ingest our content, it should be available to you. And as long as you're connected to the lab, we can dynamically insert an ad. We can track about 50 data points of the user's interaction with that file. It's trackable, it's monetizable, it becomes an extension of the creators network, and it becomes an extension of the syndicators network. We really think that, the mind shift has to be away from this idea that you need to bring the audiences. The content needs to be out there in whatever channel, broadcast, broadband, mobile. It needs to be available for you to consume, and if you can build a monetization mechanism and tracking into the file, it shouldn't matter what the content is.
Right. So that involves something like a pre-roll ad or something like that?
Well, we can serve a pre-roll, we can serve a post-roll.
Isn't it unit agnostic? It involves a business model. I mean, if the content becomes that which drives the model, and the content is, even in a downloaded form, the content's sitting there, it has played, and it's either taken with a business model or it is owed a business model next time it syncs up. I mean, I think it's ad unit agnostic, right? It might be a keyword.
Yeah, I agree. I think where the challenge this poses and is in that syndication model, what happens when you start sharing revenue with the distribution site as well? Because all of a sudden, that brings on sort of a billing and payments infrastructure. It brings on the idea of a three-way revenue share in a way that's very different than the grab-and-go embedded player today. And that's something that I've worked on. We not only created content, but we did a test over the summer with MTD Networks, where we took short-form MTD Networks content, video ads, and distributed that through a few hundred of our AdSense sites, and they got to share in the revenue generated by that. So all of a sudden, and this goes back to, well, why would content owners look to a particular site to upload their content? I think we're going to be asking the same question of people who are blogging, people who are publishing their own content sites. When an embedded player is available everywhere, what's going to be the reason that they go and grab a Google Video Player or a Rever Player or a Soapbox Player?
Well, beyond embedded players, Hunter, I mean, I'm thinking of reasons why a very sophisticated content writer might come to technology partners is how quickly can I press a button and take my content and make it the glue that requests a business model on any device. I don't think that necessarily indicates that you're going to share revenue with a carrier because someone happens to suck that down on a mobile phone, be that download or be that streaming. But to me, that's where technology providers win is making it frictionless.
But there's one thing though, I mean, the vast majority of content created has no revenue opportunity. It simply is created oftentimes with ideas that you're sharing with friends. So they didn't even just leave like 3 cents because it's been watched 200 times is not going to really work from any kind of micro-payment standpoint. So I think that there is going to be a fragmentation of that experience to where a lot of the content will have no monetization and some of it will have a lot of monetization value, and you're going to have to be able to split those two things. The things that the person cares about when it's just for personal use is a very different experience than the person who cares about it from making money standpoint. And then there's a third part, which is simply a marketing aspect. I want this out there. I would actually pay to get it out there. And it's not about me generating, it's about me generating a message that I can actually communicate to the audience. So I think it's even more complicated than you get up. And what people will choose will really depend on what their mission is with that content.
Yeah, right. It's funny. The internet, the stereotypical view of the internet is all about disintermediation, right? A direct relationship between the creator and the viewer of content. And yet, we've come up with a value chain here that involves distribution and payments back to rights holders and ad networks and maybe search engines, and it's very long and complicated off of advertisers' dollars at the end of the day. And that kind of segues to the third major group of stakeholders that I see running the show or important here, and that's the advertisers themselves. And I feel like a lot of what's been in the press has been, the agencies are experimenting a little bit, but nobody wants their ad appearing in an unknown MySpace page or up against an unknown user-created video. What are you guys doing to overcome those concerns? And are you seeing any particular advertisers or agencies really kind of being more aggressive or more conservative here?
Yeah, well, I think our stance from the very beginning was that we were, because we wanted to track advertisers, we did want to be a destination site. We had a no porn and no objectionable content, and it also was our stance on copyrighted content as well. But we spent a lot of time with advertisers talking about what we do, and by and large they've written off the user-generated site except for some remnant ads. They didn't want to be participating, but they didn't want to get an audience, so there was a sort of push-pull. And so you spend time with the advertisers until you're convinced that you're actually going to live within parameters. But everybody, when you look at how they advertise on television today, they look at the television show they're advertising on. It's very much the demographics matter a lot, and how they tie their brand to a show is very, very important to them. And if the show goes a certain direction, they may want to pull their ads. If the show is very popular with a certain segment, they want to maybe push those ads to be there. So they're used to having that kind of control that they're not going to easily have with user-generated content. And so I think that some of the more aggressive ones are going to walk very carefully in this space, and they're going to be there, but a lot of people will hold off until they feel comfortable.
The brands I talk to, and I talk to brands a lot, are clamoring to get into this. And they are afraid of the inappropriate adjacency. And I was at home and I saw Drudge, and I found out a woman named Jenna Jameson had 970,000 friends. So I didn't know who Jenna was. God forgive me, I live in Redmond. So on my personal computer, non-work PC, went to Jenna's space. And yeah, she had 970,000 friends. And one of them had a little quote box right up next to a banner for a very, very popular CPG weight loss product. And it was a 14-year-old girl explaining that she couldn't wait to turn 18 because she wanted to be a porn star. And so being, a good person, I took a screen grab, said excellent, said that to the product manager. So people are afraid of the credibility issue, and I wish I could talk about how we are approaching that. I'm anxious to go out and share it. One of the things I will say, though, is the reason that we have Only Girl 15, the reason that we have these notable clips we've talked about is because of the law of large numbers. And so while I applaud what you're doing, because I think it's very smart, and it's where I would safely place an ad, someone's going to have to figure out a methodology to advertise against the law of large numbers, which is what user-generated video is. And we think we have a plan, and I wish I could talk about it, but Hunter's here, so I just can't.
With Hunter here, I mean, look, Google's obviously been the epitome of being able to take and create the long tail of advertising. And I think that's going to be the most important thing in advertising. We all have our eyes set on this big giant television advertising market of traditional advertisers that have their very specific rules of what they will advertise against, what they won't. Of course, then there are shows like Fear Factor, right, that have advertisers advertising after someone who just ate some cockroach and puked all over the place. And it's amazing that they can find advertisers for that. that also makes you start to think of what really are those rules and can they really be bent. But I think the most interesting part about it is creating a 30-second spot is getting easier and easier. As cameras are getting cheaper, nonlinear editing software ships free with your PCs and Macintoshes, and we all know that a lot of people can create 30-second spots. There are companies, for example, like SpotRunner, that create, in a sense, what's video clip art that allows you to, take a piece of video that's already been pre-shot professionally, add some audio, add some text to it, and all of a sudden here's your ad. I think the key is going to be, and I think Google is in a great spot to create that technology that allows you to target well and buy in limited quantities and serve ads from non-traditional advertisers. And I believe that market may be larger than the market of traditional television advertising as it sits today.
Okay, so three things.
100%.
First, if you're getting into if you're an advertiser or you're getting into the video space and you're thinking about creating your first 30-second spot, please don't. Please create a 5, an 8, or a 12-second spot. Just bringing sort of TV advertising and taking it online is not going to be as effective for you. 2, I definitely think there's advertiser interest. And it's going to be led by the forward-thinking large companies and the small and medium companies, if sort of our experience in user-generated web content is any indication. And 3rd, I think it's a search quality issue. I think that if you can do a good job of understanding what a video is about, then in a scalable way, you can help appropriately target or help the advertisers make the decision around which content they want to be alongside. And I agree very much with Todd's standpoint that at the end of the day, sort of it has to be scalable and available to work at the large numbers that are going to get advertisers involved. They're not interested in, the large advertisers aren't, and their agencies aren't interested in doing a $7,500 buy. They want to do large buys that cut across a large network.
Bill, you guys are opting for the more kind of editing and control over content as a way to make advertisers happy. Is that working for you guys as well? And,
Yes, it's working very well. So there's really 2 issues. What content do I want to be directly associated with, i.e. the pre-roll in front of the video or the post-play, it's the click and lab that actually drives a visitor to my website and back. And then there's where's that content actually going to be distributed? So for us, what we've done is we've built out a platform that allows the advertiser to target their campaign in a variety of ways, whether it's run a network, whether it's by tags, which we've discussed is not necessarily the best methodology for targeting a campaign, or because we review the content by hand, you can actually categorize it into traditional IAB categories. So if somebody wants to buy a sports channel, we can organize a group of content that fits into what an advertiser would typically consider a sports channel and push it out there. You can take that to a very granular level. I mean, our plan is to allow the advertiser that wants to have a call to action ad that sits behind a single video to exist in our system to do that. So if I'm running a movie trailer and I want to drive someone to the fan site, or I want to drive someone to Fandango to buy tickets while it's in theatrical release, or to Netflix or Blockbuster when it's in DVD release, we want to allow the messaging to be very directly correlated to the actual clip that the viewer's watching. The other piece is, where is that clip actually living out there on the web? And that's a little bit tougher for us because we have an open syndication model. So essentially, as long as you agree to our terms of service and comply with our rules, which state you can't put our videos on porn sites and racism-driven sites and hate sites, you can take Rever content and push it out there. So the second issue is really, well, where is my ad showing up with that content that I am comfortable targeting it with? That's a little harder to manage, and we have to really do that through sort of a post-approval process. So we have to monitor the network, we have to look at referring URLs, we have to look at data that comes back through the viewership issues and try to clean that up. Because frankly, there's a lot of advertisers that can get comfortable with the content, particularly if you can target it by MPA guidelines and kinds of things that we use to sort of segregate the content. But they really need to know that that content's not going to live on a website that they're not comfortable with. They can't see a referring URL come back to them that they're not comfortable with, so they can address that.
See, I think it actually gets much more interesting than that. I mean, traditionally, we target advertising towards shows or towards demographics. But with the internet, we have the capability of targeting advertising towards people. So if all of us are watching the exact same episode of the exact same show, why should we get the exact same advertising? We're all strange people. I'm an amateur music producer. I buy a lot of gear for recording music. I have a recording studio at home. And I have very diverse tastes in programming. I watch everything from traditional down-home programming to pornography to, I admit it, yes, to all kinds of content. But yet, if you're a company called DigiDesign that sells rack-mounted units that I spend a lot of money on, you should be following me around no matter what I'm watching, because at the end of the day, you're targeting me, and that's where you're going to find me. If you keep trying to target shows and demographics in a world of 100 million shows, it's going to become a pretty difficult thing to do.
Don't end users freak out about that, though? I mean, the whole idea of, a cookie following you around and ads tracking you from site to site to site across the net.
Well, I think it
I
gets
freak out a
difficult.
little bit.
I think it gets difficult to go site to site to site. But that's why aggregators, I believe, make sense. I mean, this is where I have to agree with Greg, that when you've got an aggregator that you trust, a social network that you build, and that aggregator keeps we keep a vector for people, right? We don't keep personal data, we keep a vector, and that vector just knows the kinds of things you may be interested in. And then that vector is able to, using that same technology that can target content to you, can target advertising to you. And we believe that's when the CPMs go up, that's when you can target content that traditionally would never be bought. But it's bought because the viewer who's watching it is the valuable thing, not the content. The content may be worth zero to anyone, but the fact that I'm viewing it and I've got deep pockets and that I want to buy that stuff that you want to sell me, to you that piece of content becomes priceless.
I have to really agree with Dimitri. We have to do a much better job. And quite frankly, I'd be really pleased if the advertisers follow me, because I'm really tired of getting University of Phoenix ads just for being in there. I've already graduated and don't need any more of those. If you can find out, we found something out as well. If you ask people what they're interested in, they will tell you. So you don't have to be nefarious about like who you search for, something like sports cars. You suddenly showing sports cars videos. You can actually just ask them what you're interested in. And then if you get that audience to ask them, you can now target them with advertising that actually makes sense. So for example, I guess I love movies. You can't show me enough trailers, but don't show me the same one 10 times. So that's really like content to me. If it's sports cars, another addiction I have, I confess, you can't show me enough sports cars videos. So we all have our things we like, and we really, really wish the advertisers would reach us. I find it ironic that the magazines, offline magazines like Wired, do a better job of targeting me than most websites do, despite the fact that I've been on some of the websites for years.
Actually, there is nothing more, and I'll say it in front of everyone here, and we're being recorded. There's nothing that Steven Spielberg can produce with $1 billion budget that I would rather watch tonight than a product manager for DigiDesign giving me a 10-hour tour of the new Digio 2 rack-mounted unit. Why? Because that's my hobby, and because I'm a freak, because we all are freaks. We all have those strange hobbies. And to me, that content is not a commercial, it's not an infomercial. It's the epitome of what I want to watch. In fact, I want it to be 10 hours. I want it to be 10 hours every single day, because again, that is my passion. And to them, again, that's priceless.
When you have to I think you have to look at advertisers in general, and they're looking to capture a user at a capped time, and we're talking about syndication and how do you monetize that. And we look at our business and say, well, after 3 years we built a successful business on photos. In videos we don't look at any differently. I would never put an ad inside of a user-created video that's only 20, 30 seconds long. You have to look at what they're doing when they're at the site. People are at Photobucket, they're creating, they're really, really captive. We've done a ton of tests, and you take the same user at our site and then maybe at a community site where they're actually consuming, and the response rates are much, much better because, again, they're in a very, very captive time. So I think that you have to really look at where you're going to capture them. There's this little company down the street from us that happened to build a great business on a site that you go to get off of that site. And, if you look at Google and really, that wasn't the original model, was to get all the consumers there and then advertise to them. It was about utility that was really a pass-through, and you happen to capture them at the right time with some type of targeting.
There's something that I found myself because of a traditional media background, and first I want to say I agree with Hunter on the shorter ad units, that'd be great, but the pragmatist in me from the traditional media side will remind you that there is not a person in this room who needs Pepsi. There's not a person in this room who needs Milky Way, nor do you need Kraft macaroni and cheese. None of you need it, none of us do. It is the job of media sites to provide a platform in which companies selling that stuff get to interrupt you whenever they want. And in my judgment, as much as I'd love to see it be just stuff in which I'm interested, I assure you, the CEO of Pepsi knows, Greg, that you deeply, deeply need a Pepsi.
And I do. Diet Pepsi. I think that there's a balance between that, though. I think that to sort of take your story one step farther, I think that the gentleman at the University of Phoenix in marketing would like to know that I'm really not going to attend. So somewhere between, say that fraction of a penny, somewhere between Pepsi, which quite frankly, a branding ad can be very exciting. So you can take Pepsi and put the right spin on it, and everybody will want to watch it. That's a little different from an informative ad where you're trying to get you to do some action.
Yeah.
So
I feel like once somebody's clicked on the box that says, "Oh, I'll always show me ads from this advertiser," that's not something the advertiser needs to be advertising.
That's a great point.
Not necessarily. Let me give you another example where that's important. So we did a study, or there was a study done on musicians. So people's favorite band, 70% of the people didn't know when their band released a new record. So that meant, I'm using records such as a whole life. But they didn't know. So if you simply find out what they want, you're pushing them over the edge to make that consumptive choice. That's a good thing if you're an advertiser. So there is a balance.
Yeah, we're down to the last 10 minutes. I'd like to take at least a few questions before we wrap up. So go ahead.
Yeah. Case study. We have, like, for example, a film they spent $1 million on it, targeting like a 25-year-old audience. It's kind of coming of age film. It's a dating movie. How would each of the social networks promote this to their constituency on behalf of the filmmaker? What would be the model?
Well, our model would be to allow that syndication base to digest and redistribute the content based on whatever their particular audience would be. So if you look at the pool of the folks that are taking videos off of Rever and pushing them out to their audience, they would have to be interested in the same subject matter or the same audience that your film was targeted towards, and they would have the ability to select and push that content out there. Within the site itself, we have a concept called featured collections, and we do have some portal-like features where we actually promote certain collections of content. But we're really not similar to some of the other destinations in that we're not really all about that whole community piece. We're more about the intermediary sort of position of allowing the syndicator to take the content and get it out there.
Yeah, I'd like to get one insight from one of the more destination-oriented guys.
Okay, well, we would ask you how much money you have. Because that actually, it's a pertinent question, right? I mean, you can upload that in a soapbox and that'd be great. You can do a business deal with us. But we might also take advantage of the fact that MSN is in fact a media network. And we may in fact partner with you to build an environment in which it is preferable to watch that in MSN, where you get additive experiences along with that, as opposed to simply a pointing URL. And that would come down to our relationship and how much work we together. And you look like a hell of a nice guy, by the way. So.
Go ahead.
It's a lot like about advertisers looking at user-generated contests. I wondered if any of you had experimented with that and how it was going.
We're in beta right now with advertisers on that.
Yeah, we've worked with or just turned the tools over and let them run with it. I mean, I think I get a lot of advertisers who come and say, gee, I'm sure that if I ask users just to tell me, upload videos about their love of product X, we're gonna get tons of viral stuff. And the dirty little secret is, no, often you're not. Yeah, there is this trend called user-generated content, but just trying to direct that pipe towards your branded environment and marketing goals isn't going to work. And so you need to be creative. You need to come up with ideas of, well, what are people doing now? What are the trends that I can tap into? What are some new incentives or approaches I can take to get the attention of my audience? And how do I use my marketing excellence to tap into the people who already have an affinity for my brand and want to be associated with it? So we've done a lot of things, we'll continue to do a lot, but I think it's about more than just putting an uploader on a page and coming up with a upload your video about X.
Yeah. Greg, are you guys
Oh, yeah,
running
I
contests?
100% agree with it. It's more than that. You can't just talk about it. We did stuff recently just with the Tyra show where it's basically Tyra encourages them to upload their sort of complaints on their boyfriends or husbands. Yeah, it's great stuff. And I think it's just combining traditional media. This is where traditional media and online media can really come together. They reach a huge audience today with their show, and so there's an advantage to taking it online and creating community around that. And I think you're going to see a lot more creative work around these aspects. But yeah, just having a web page that says, hey, create a video, is not going to happen.
Next question. Yeah, okay. You're not asking a question, but you are. Go ahead. Standing up in the back, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. When you're dealing with user-generated content, how important, or the production value, quote unquote production value, you're taking it in, you're editing, you're seeing what you want to use, what you don't want to use, as a distributor of the content. Whose viewpoint is more important when you're considering the outcome of that production? The end result, is it the consumer who are watching it, or the advertisers who put money in to support your video?
I'd say the consumer digging it. Because low production values aren't going to matter if someone is really getting a kick out of the clip. And if it's, you know, something around which advertisers are advertised, I rarely get the, oh, but the production value is bad. Of course it's bad. It's user generated.
If your production value is low, sell it as authentic.
I hesitate as to all, products I'm biased, but I hesitate as to all group user-generated content into the stuff that looks like crap. I mean, when Kevin Smith produced Clerks, I would argue that was user-generated content. It was something that was financed on his credit card shop in a convenience store with a QR pad. It was a movie I suspect most of us have seen it here. Right, so user-generated content today is majority, you know, very amateurish looking. But even with tools that are available today, we can create such user-generated content that looks like it has significant production value, especially if you're generating short clips, right? Because generating something that's 30 seconds long that looks like it's professionally produced is, I think, very attainable. Generating something that's an hour and a half long that looks like it's professionally produced is more difficult. But even that's possible. And so I hesitate to allow us to think that user-generated content is all of what we see today. Again, we're very, very early on in this thing. Next year, user-generated content will look dramatically different. And 3 years from now, I believe most of us will have a difficult time telling the difference between user-generated content and professionally generated content. And so this whole discussion becomes, goes away very quickly, I believe.
Bill, do you guys have a quality threshold, like in terms of encoding rates or something like that?
No, not really. I mean, it has to, the viewability of the video has to be relatively good, but the editorial content value can be horrible. And you know, it's a self-determining sort of process. I mean, you can make no money, and a lot of people do.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more. So, in the blue shirt.
It's a question actually that I think Joe poses on its own blog as for Hunter. Is Google a media company or a technology company?
I think fundamentally we're a technology company. I think our goal is to connect people with information. Increasingly, as the web becomes more about than just text, and it's about images, it's about video, I think it starts to feel like there are media around us that before wasn't part of that connection. But all we do is we take user intent and we direct it towards what is hopefully satisfying there.
Fair enough. All right. With that, thank you all very much for coming. We've only scratched the surface here, but there's another 3 days, and I'm sure these topics will come up time and again.